A squad of elite Brazilian Special Forces operators, the GRUMEC, tough, battle-hardened warriors from the depths of the Amazon and the roughest seas, land on a remote Philippine island for what they think is a routine joint training exercise. They're cocky, calling their Filipino counterparts amateurs behind their backs, laughing about how easy it'll be to dominate. But by the end of the day, these Brazilians are face down in the mud, utterly humiliated in a brutal 7-0 assault that leaves them eating dirt, literally and figuratively. How did a group of supposedly under-equipped Filipino forces turn the tables so spectacularly? Stick around, because this story of pride, strategy, and sweet revenge will have you on the edge of your seat until the very last twist. And trust me, the final revelation about what really happened that day will blow your mind. It all started in the sweltering heat of Manila, back in 2025, when international tensions were simmering in the South China Sea. The world was watching as nations beefed up their alliances, and one such pact brought together the Brazilian Navy's GRUMEC, Grupo de Mergulhadores de Combate, their elite naval commandos, and the Philippine Naval Special Operations Group, or NAVSOC. On paper, it was a friendly exchange: share tactics, run simulations, build camaraderie. But beneath the surface, egos were bubbling like lava in a volcano. Let me paint the picture for you. The GRUMEC guys were legends in their own right, trained in everything from underwater demolition to jungle warfare. These operators had seen action in anti-piracy ops off the African coast, hostage rescues in the favelas of Rio, and even covert insertions during international drug busts. Their leader, Captain Eduardo Tigre Santos, was a beast of a man, 6'4", built like a tank, with scars from knife fights and a tattoo of a jaguar across his chest. He and his team of 6, let us call them the Savage 7, arrived in the Philippines with smirks on their faces. They'd heard stories about the Filipinos, brave, sure, but outgunned, underfunded, relying on grit rather than gear. Amadors, Tigre muttered to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Marco Viper Ruiz, as they stepped off the plane. Amateurs, this'll be like taking candy from a baby. The Filipinos, on the other hand, were no pushovers. NAVSOG had a reputation forged in the fires of counter-terrorism ops against Abu Sayyaf militants, maritime interdictions in disputed waters, and survival in typhoon-ravaged terrains. Their commander, Major Ramon Ghost de la Cruz, was a wiry, unassuming guy in his 40s, with eyes that could pierce through steel. He led a unit of battle-tested operators who knew every inch of their archipelago like the back of their hand. They were masters of asymmetric warfare, making do with what they had, turning disadvantages into deadly traps. But when the Brazilians arrived at the joint base in Cavite, the tension was palpable from the start. The first few days were all about classroom sessions and light drills. The GRUMEC team demonstrated their high-tech gear, state-of-the-art night vision goggles, suppressed MP7 submachine guns, and even prototype exoskeletons for enhanced strength in close-quarters combat. The Filipinos nodded politely, showing off their own kit: reliable but older M4 carbines, locally modified boats for stealth insertions, and an array of improvised explosives that could turn a coconut grove into a kill zone. Behind closed doors, though, the Brazilians chuckled. "Look at their junk," Viper said during a smoke break. "We're going to school these guys." Major Ghost overheard one such comment. Whispered, but not whispered enough. His face remained stoic, but inside, a fire ignited. The Filipinos had pride, too. They'd fought colonial powers for centuries, from the Spanish to the Japanese to modern insurgents. Being called amateurs? That stung. Ghost gathered his team that night in a dimly lit barracks. "They think we're weak," he said, his voice low and steady. "Let's show them what real warriors are made of. But we do it smart. Not with brute force, with our way." The main event was a week-long exercise on a remote island in the Visayas chain. Let us say it was a fictional spec called Isla Oscura, Dark Island, fitting for what was about to unfold. The scenario: the Brazilians would play the aggressors, simulating an invasion force trying to capture a high-value target hidden in the island's interior. The Filipinos would defend, using guerrilla tactics to repel them. It was supposed to be non-lethal: paint rounds, laser tags, smoke grenades, but the intensity was real. The GRUMEC team planned a multi-pronged assault: amphibious landing at dawn, followed by a push through the jungle to the target compound. As the exercise kicked off, the Brazilians hit the beach like pros. Under the cover of pre-dawn darkness, their Zodiac boats sliced through the waves silently. Tigre led the charge, his team fanning out in perfect formation. They expected minimal resistance, maybe a few tripwires or scouts. But as they crested the dunes, the first surprise hit. A series of flashbangs erupted from hidden pits, blinding them momentarily. "What the?" Tigre growled, but before he could react, paint rounds zipped from the treeline. One of his men, Sergeant Paulo Hammer Lima, took a hit to the chest, out of the game. The Filipinos had set up an early warning system using local fishermen's nets rigged with sensors. Simple, effective, and utterly unexpected. The Brazilians pressed on, shaking off the loss. "Amateurs got lucky," Viper muttered. They moved into the jungle, humidity clinging to their skin like a second layer. The path was narrow, overgrown with vines and roots that seemed to grab at their boots. Tigre signaled for a halt when they spotted a clearing ahead, the perfect spot for an ambush. But they were the ones walking into it. As they advanced, the ground gave way under Hammer's replacement, Corporal Diego Shadow Mendez. A pit trap, camouflaged with leaves and dirt, swallowed him up to his waist. Before he could climb out, a Filipino operator popped up from a spider hole, those ingenious underground hides, and tagged him with a paint round. 2 down. The team regrouped, frustration mounting. They activated their drones, small quadcopters with thermal imaging, to scout ahead. "Now we'll see them coming," Tigre said confidently. The drone buzzed over the canopy, relaying footage back to their HUDs. Heat signatures dotted the screen, Filipinos positioned in a defensive perimeter around the target. "Easy pickings," Viper grinned. They flanked left, using suppressors to take out sentries with precise shots. 3 Filipinos down, but as the Brazilians closed in, the drone feed flickered and died. Jammed. The NAVSOG had deployed cheap electromagnetic jammers hidden in bird nests, another low-tech win against high-tech hubris. Now it was close quarters. The compound was a mock village of bamboo huts and concrete bunkers. The Brazilians breached the outer wall with shaped charges. Boom! A hole blasted open. They poured in, stacking up on doors, clearing rooms with textbook efficiency. But inside, the Filipinos had turned the place into a maze of mirrors and false walls. One GRUMEC operator, Private First Class Luis Falcon Oliveira, kicked in a door only to face his own reflection, mirrors angled to confuse. A hidden panel slid open, and a paint grenade rolled out, killing him and splattering 2 others. Chaos ensued. Shouts in Portuguese mixed with Tagalog commands. Tigre fired blindly into smoke, but the Filipinos were ghosts, melting into the shadows. By midday, the score was tilting. The Brazilians had taken out 4 more defenders, but at a cost. 5 of their own were out. Only Tigre and Viper remained. Sweaty, mud-caked, they hunkered down in a bunker, reloading. "This isn't right," Tigre panted. "They're cheating or something." Viper nodded, but deep down, doubt crept in. The Filipinos weren't amateurs. They were adapting, using the environment like an extension of their bodies. The turning point came in the afternoon. The remaining Brazilians made a desperate push for the high-value target, a flag in the central hut. They flanked from opposite sides, coordinating via radio. But Ghost had anticipated this. His team had dug a network of tunnels under the compound, inspired by the Siu Chi tunnels of Vietnam. As Tigre burst into the hut, the floor collapsed beneath him, a trapdoor leading to a muddy pit. He fell in, landing hard, his weapon jammed with dirt. Above, Ghost stood, paint gun aimed. "Amador," he said calmly, before tagging Tigre center mass. Viper, hearing the commotion, rushed in, only to step on a pressure plate. A net sprang up, hoisting him into the air like a caught animal. Dangling helplessly, he watched as the last Filipino operators emerged, unscathed. The exercise ended with a whistle from the referees, 7-0. All Brazilians killed, 0 losses for the defenders. The aftermath was humiliating. The GRUMEC team, covered in mud and paint, literally ate dirt as they climbed out of pits and nets. Tigre's face was priceless, red with rage and embarrassment. Major Ghost extended a hand, helping him up. "Good game," he said with a smile. "Learn from the amateurs." The Brazilians slunk back to base, egos bruised, while the Filipinos celebrated quietly. Word spread like wildfire through military circles, turning into a legend. The day the mighty GRUMEC ate dirt at the hands of NAVSOG. But wait, that's not the full story. What if I told you there was more to it? A secret layer that even most participants didn't know about. Stick with me as I dive deeper into the backstories, the training that led to this, and the real-life inspirations behind this fictional clash. Because this tale isn't just about one exercise. It's about the clash of cultures, the underdog spirit, and lessons in humility that could change how special forces train worldwide. Let's rewind a bit. To understand why the Brazilians were so overconfident, we need to look at their history. GRUMEC was formed in the 1970s, modeled after the U.S. Navy SEALs. Their training is grueling. Candidates endure Hell Week in the Atlantic, swimming miles with full gear, surviving mock drownings, and navigating minefields. Tigre himself had survived a real op where his team infiltrated a cartel submarine, blowing it sky high without a single casualty. They were used to winning, to overwhelming foes with superior tech and firepower. The Filipinos, though, came from a different mold. NAVSOG traces its roots to the Scout Rangers and the hardships of island hopping during World War II. Their operators train in the monsoon rains, learning to forage, to hide in mangroves, to turn fishing boats into assault craft. Major Ghost had lost friends in ambushes against terrorists, honing his skills in real blood. Funding was tight. The Philippines' military budget was a fraction of Brazil's, but necessity bred innovation. They used coconut husks for silencers, banana leaves for camouflage, and local knowledge for intel. In the lead-up to the exercise, the Brazilians partied in Manila, hitting bars, boasting about past victories. One night, at a karaoke joint, Viper belted out a Brazilian samba while mocking Filipino accents. A NAVSOG scout overheard, reporting back to Ghost. That sealed it. The exercise would be a lesson. On Isla Oscura, the island itself was a character. Volcanic soil made for slippery trails, dense foliage hid sniper nests, and hidden caves provided resupply points. The Filipinos had reconned it for weeks, planting decoys and traps. The Brazilians relied on satellite maps. Good, but no substitute for boots-on-ground familiarity. Let's break down the 7-0 assault step by step, because each kill was a masterpiece of tactics. First kill, Sergeant Hammer on the beach. The flashbangs were rigged with fishing line tripwires, triggered by the first invader. Simple physics. Tension releases a pin, igniting the charge. The Filipinos had practiced this 100 times, knowing the Brazilians would land at the obvious spot. Second, Corporal Shadow in the jungle pit. Dug overnight, covered with a lattice of branches and dirt. Psychology played in. The path was baited with a clear trail, luring them in. Third and fourth, the mirror maze in the compound. Inspired by funhouse tricks, but deadly. The smoke obscured vision, forcing reliance on instincts, which the Brazilians lacked in this alien terrain. Fifth, Private Falcon with the paint grenade. Rolled from a hidden chute, timed perfectly. Sixth, Tigre in the pit. The trapdoor was weighted, collapsing under 200+ pounds of geared operator. Seventh, Viper in the net. A classic hunter's snare, upscaled for humans. Each takedown highlighted a theme: over-reliance on tech versus adaptive ingenuity. Post-exercise, the debrief was tense. The Brazilian commander, back in Rio, demanded a rematch. But Tigre, humbled, shook Ghost's hand. "We learn more from losing than winning," he admitted. Friendships formed. Joint ops followed, blending styles. Now here's where it gets juicy. In this fictional twist, it turns out the high-value target wasn't just a flag. Hidden in the scenario was a simulated bioweapon canister, part of a larger plot. Unbeknownst to the Brazilians, the Filipinos had intel that a rogue element within GRUMEC was actually trying to steal it for a black market deal. Wait, what? Yeah, in our story, Viper was the mole, corrupted by cartel money. The amateurs label was a cover to underestimate them. During the exercise, Ghost's team discovered clues, an encrypted radio transmission from Viper. They adapted the traps to capture him alive, the net symbolizing entrapment. The 7-0 wasn't just victory, it was justice. Viper was arrested post-exercise, exposed as a traitor. Tigre, shocked, owed his career to the Filipinos for uncovering it. This revelation hit military forums hard, going viral. Clips of the exercise, declassified for PR, showed the Brazilians fall, captioned "eating dirt." It sparked debates on special forces training, tech versus tradition. If you're enjoying this epic tale of underdogs triumphing over arrogance, hit that subscribe button right now. We've got more stories like this, real and fictional clashes that teach life lessons. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. All right, back to the story. Expanding on the characters, let's humanize them. Tigre wasn't always cocky. Born in the slums of São Paulo, he joined the Navy to escape poverty. His bravado masked insecurities from a tough childhood. The defeat on Isla Oscura was a wake-up call, leading to personal growth. Post-incident, he trained with Navsog, adopting their methods. Ghost, orphaned by a typhoon, rose through ranks on sheer will. His calm demeanor hid a strategic genius, influenced by Sun Tzu's art of war. The island's ecosystem added flavor. Monkeys chattering warnings, bioluminescent plankton lighting night swims, venomous snakes avoided by locals' knowledge. In an extended scene, during the jungle push, a storm hit, torrential rain turning paths to rivers. Brazilians' gear short-circuited. Filipinos thrived, using ponchos from palm fronds. Another layer, cultural exchange. After the exercise, they shared meals. Brazilian feijoada meets Filipino adobo. Bonds formed over beer, stories swapped. But the traitor plot thickens. Viper's betrayal stemmed from debt, gambling losses to cartels. He planned to grab the canister, actually a prop, during chaos, but Filipinos' vigilance foiled it. The viral aspect. A leaked video from a drone, ironically, a Brazilian one, captured the net hoist. Memes exploded. GRUMEC versus gravity, 0 to 1. It hit millions of views, boosting recruitment for Navsog. Lessons learned. Humility in warfare, value of alliances, innovation over budget. To flesh this out to epic proportions, let's imagine alternate scenarios. What if the Brazilians won? They'd reinforce arrogance, missing the mole. Or if real bullets were used? Tragedy. Extend the narrative. Months later, a joint op against pirates in the Sulu Sea. Blending skills, they succeed flawlessly. Personal anecdotes. Tigre mentors a young Filipino operator, passing on lessons. The story's moral: never underestimate amateurs. They might just make you eat dirt. And that's the tale, folks. From cocky arrival to humiliating defeat, with twists of betrayal and redemption. If this hooked you, like, comment, and subscribe for more.